And Gary, we are recording, and 3, 2, 1, and you are on, Gary.
Welcome to the Gary and Kenny Show. I'm Gary Kroger, coming to you from America's heartland in Waterloo, Iowa. And I'm joined, as always, with Kenneth Seisler in Calabasas, California, which is America's, what?
Well, Calabasas has gotten a lot of attention. When I first moved out to Calabasas, nobody heard of it. But then the Kardashians came out here, and then Calabasas became famous for the Kardashians. And then people heard about, unfortunately, then Kobe got his helicopter crashed here.
Now, that's why everybody knows Calabasas.
Now everybody knows Calabasas because of that. Yeah.
Right.
So,
has it changed
and
your
I think
lifestyle?
Justin Bieber lived here for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you ever see the Kardashians around town? Is there a downtown Calabasas, like little place?
There's
with
an old town Calabasas, which
historic Calabasas.
Historic. It's a building that was just really old.
Right.
That's
all right.
What it is. Yeah. No, I don't know if I've seen I'm not really good at recognizing
people.
People. Yeah. Because I don't pay attention. I don't want to know. So yeah, that's what.
That's why we're so compatible, Kenneth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of compatible, I'm always looking for some kind of segue, and that's I think the best I'm going to get.
Well done.
All right. Well,
hey, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, no, please do.
I'm sorry, we're not taking any questions.
I want to say, when you said you're not good at recognizing people, so my wife has this talent of recognizing celebrities from behind. So and I swear to God, it's happened 30 times, and she'll go, see that over there, and it'll be 60 yards away, and she'll say, that is, and it'll be somebody that's famous.
And we'll certainly drill deeper into this in a moment after you're actually introduced. But is it the back of their head? Is it their posterior? Is it?
I don't know what it is, but it's a talent, and unfortunately, and believe me, we've tried it. You can't monetize that talent.
No, you really can't, can you?
No.
But does she have to explain to people that she recognized them from behind? Like to go, how did you know it was me? And she goes, because of your fat ass.
What'd you say, Brad?
Yes, we run away as soon as she
right away.
Yeah, okay, that's my strategy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have met our guest, but I want to say a little something about Brad Hall. I have known William Bradford Hall, for 44 years.
Jesus Christ.
Let that sink in.
That's nearly half your life, Gary.
Yeah, almost half my life.
Really.
And in fact, we can go into this in a bit. I remember the moment we met, Brad, 44 years ago. I remember you coming into my apartment. But anyway, that's neither
oh
here
my
nor there.
God, that's disgusting.
I was a rent boy.
We went to Northwestern together, but over the years, especially in the beginning, our lives and careers have been very connected at times. We manage now to see each other about once a year when I go to Los Angeles or when you're on a book tour through Waterloo, Iowa, Brad. Our lives are divergent now, but I have to tell you sincerely, he is one of the most inspiring people that I've ever known, somebody that I've looked up to, even though I'm older than he is, since I've met him. And he's also possibly the smartest person that I know. Now, he has an advantage you'll notice he has a very large brain. Brad has a very large head. And so and I mean this seriously, his brain is bigger than mine. And therefore, I'm essentially like a motor function. And Brad is just this absolutely brilliant human being.
Now, does that correlate to any other part of the anatomy?
We'll get into it.
Shoulders. I have big shoulders.
But we digress. Brad and I did theater together in Chicago after Northwestern. We went to Saturday Night Live together. We moved out to Los Angeles, not together necessarily, but, over the years, Brad is an executive producer, a showrunner, a writer, a director, and we'll get into those specifics and how it all happened. But please welcome once again, Brad Hall.
God bless you, Gary.
I can't believe he's still here after that introduction.
I slept through only the first part.
Okay.
That's very nice of you. God bless you, Gary.
Yeah, well, thank you for being with us, Brad.
It's not like this is your first interview ever, and everybody talks about Julia, and everybody talks blah, 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 blah. Well, obviously, you were going to talk about some of that. Saturday Night Live for both of us was a difficult experience, but there are some stories to tell.
Can I go back? I just want to say something. I think you guys are very familiar with who you are, as opposed to me, who I have no idea who I am. And my point is, I want to fill people in on where you guys came from, which was you had this troupe from Northwestern, right? And they were the Practical Theater Company.
The idea was to do new plays in improvisational theater, and we liked to improvise in our rehearsals, but we didn't do sets. We wanted to be different from Second City, so we did our improvisationally derived stuff, and with a lot of music, sort of semi rock and rolly kind of music that you could do in a tiny theater like that. And that's what we were doing for, I guess a year or two, and then we did a show. So
this is 4 guys right now.
Yeah, and then Julia
it's 4 white guys.
And remember, I was billed.
Diversity yet, that's for sure.
I was billed as the beardless boy.
You were the first show, Gary. Did all the
I did all the women's roles as the beardless boy in the Shakespearean tradition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then the next couple of shows we started to have women in the shows, funny women. One of whom was Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and then we moved. We had a big hit. Couple of big hits. It wasn't hard to have a big hit in a 42 seconds.
Basically, your friends show up and you're in a packed house.
And then off we went to Chicago. We built a bigger theater in Chicago where we could sell drinks. Unfortunately, Second City got all the money from our drinks. We were next door to Second City, which was famous, of course, at the time. And it was when we were doing our very first show there that the guys from Saturday Night Live came, because Tim Kazurinsky, who was on Saturday Night Live at the time, had seen our show. And he said, you guys should come and see these guys. Well, they didn't really plan to. They came and saw the show next door, the Second City show. And Bernie Sollins, who was running Second City at the time, didn't want to lose more of his cast. He'd been losing cast members to Saturday Night Live for years, including Tim and Mary Gross and a lot of other people, the Belushi's, et cetera, et cetera. And so he said to Tim, take him next door. And Tim said, I've been telling him to come next door. And he said, well, there's a show at 9. You should go next door and see it. Or 11 o'clock, the Late Show. Go see the Late Show, which they did. And that's when they hired us. Wasn't that a wild night? Really good
How
show.
was the transition for all of you from Chicago to SNL? Was it all equal? Everybody stuck together? Or were there any
very, very difficult. It was, it wasn't what we expected. First of all, we were used to being in charge, and at Practical Theater, we were all 11 years old, but whatever was funny to us, we just put in the show. And then we'd see if it was fun to the audience, and if it was, we'd leave it in. If it wasn't, we'd either fix it or force it on the audience anyway, or whatever. It wasn't like that at Saturday Night Live, obviously, and we really were not used to sort of fighting for airtime or anything. We never even thought about that. That was not.
We were tremendously mishandled. The first time we get there, nobody knows who these guys are. They're a little bit put off by the fact that we came as a group. It was a little cliquey. And we were asked to do a performance of our theater show at 2 p.m. under fluorescent lights in a crowded room post-lunch. And we bombed.
Yeah.
That's how I remember
comedy
it. Anyway.
Comedy dies under fluorescent lights.
Yeah, it does. And we bombed. So we started out with a real hurdle. I was miserable in those days, Brad. I was very jealous of you and Julia in the sense that, you guys went home together. You could share this experience.
Right. Yeah.
And you were always generously inviting me to join, but I just wallowed in self-pity for the most part.
So I'm gonna ask this question, and if you're not interested now, I'm just out of curiosity. So the troupe, the all-male troupe, brings in Julia. She's in the troupe. Were you guys an item at that point, Brad, or were you met her through?
When she first came in, when she did her first Practical Theater show, that's when I fell for her. So she wasn't I didn't know her that well. I had been away. I went to England for a year to do plays and be a drama student, that kind of stuff. And when I came back, she was in a show with Paul Barras and Rush Pearson and other Practical Theater people. Gary knew her already. And she was a freshman, so I hadn't met her. And then I went and saw her show. And actually, Paul and I, in a weird little thing, had a confusion of it. He said, "You've got to see this girl." And then he described her as being this little tiny dark-haired girl, right? So there were 2 little tiny dark-haired girls in the show. One was tinier, and it wasn't Julia. So after the show, I said, "Yeah, she's good, but this other girl is way better." I got confused. And he said, "Really?" It's like, I don't know, man, because we were trying to put together a cast for that summer for practical theater. So then when we straightened that out, and I realized that we were both talking about Julia, we said, okay, well, let's get her as soon as we can. And so it took us, I think, 6 or 8 months more, or something like that. And then Julia did her first practical theater show. She wasn't the first woman that had done. In fact, at that point, practical theater was doing an all-female review in the little theater. I mean, we had lots of women. It's not like they weren't.
Oh yeah.
But what happened to the woman who was tinier than Julia?
Yeah. We're Facebook friends.
Oh, really? Seriously?
Oh yeah.
She was good. Okay. She was really good, but Julia was particularly special.
Yeah.
Well,
so
now
when we moved, we were not. By the time that we moved to New York, we were living together and stuff, and that was a hard time. But we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, looking back on it, it was super hard, and we screwed up a lot. But I think that it was like a graduate school for television for me. I mean, we learned how to do television. We certainly
is there anything particular specifically you can say we screwed up a lot? Is there just in what sense? At what?
Well, we didn't know. Well, for one thing, we were hired to do a certain kind of thing that they never really asked us to do. And if we'd been smart, we would have really pushed to do that. But which was a lot of music, kind of a rock and roll thing, and more stylish bits. We did a lot of blackouts and stuff like that in our shows. There's ways to do that in television. We didn't really know how to express it. But here's an example of exactly how we didn't know how to articulate for the people, the powers that be, as it were, who were all about 30. It's not like they were ancient.
Right, yeah.
But they were older than we were. So I think, Gary, I think you might have written this with me and Paul. We wrote a sketch called The Upside Down Smith Family.
Upside Down, yeah. Smith Family, yeah.
Yeah, so the idea was it's a family that lives upside down. So you press a button on the control panel and the image flips. And the joke of the sketch was that the floor was what was keeping them in Earth's atmosphere. If they walked outside, they would fly away, right? And Garrett played an adolescent kid who wanted desperately to go out and have a life, go to school. He wanted to learn to read, and he wanted to see music, and his parents said, no, you'll never survive.
It's too dangerous.
And at the end of the sketch, he walks out the door and he flies into outer space, right? So we wrote that sketch and we read it in read through, and it didn't make the show. And so I was like, that was a really funny sketch. It got good reaction in the read through. So I said to the executive producer at the time, hey, what about the Upside Down Smith Family? What happened there? And the director, Davey Wilson, who was a charming, delightful guy, but born in 1925 or something. So he was of a different generation. And so he said, well, you can't do it. Technically, you can't do that sketch. I said, well, wait, I don't know anything about television, but I'm thinking, well, yeah, you can. Because, I remember back at Northwestern, we pressed a button on the control panel and the image flipped 180 degrees. No, there's no ceiling. And I said, ceiling? What is the ceiling floor? There's not supposed to be any ceiling. The joke is...
The floor is the ceiling.
Yeah, and he goes, well, what are they going to walk on? I said, they're walking on the floor. It's the image flipped. And he goes, well, that's not funny. And I said, well, that's the whole point. Never mind, right? So I go to a friend who was writing on Letterman, which was brand new. Second year of Letterman, maybe? And I said, oh, man, I can't believe it. We did this. We had this great idea, the Upside Down Smith Family. He says, hey, you mind if I steal that? And I was like, sure, what the hell, go ahead. So Letterman does a bit where the band is upside down. Okay. And they do like 4 or 5 minutes upside down. It's quite, they go too long, actually, but it worked great. It was fucking hilarious. Next day, I'm in the office. Davey comes in. He says, you see Letterman last night? And I go, yeah. Like, my point has been proved. He goes, see, it doesn't work. And I said, oh, it's a cultural problem. So, he didn't think it was funny. That's all. It wasn't. So we didn't know how to sort of negotiate that. And if I'd been more confident, probably just purely confident at the time, I could have bullied my way in, but we just didn't know. And also we all felt protective of each other. We were trying to move forward as a group. We didn't want anybody's feelings getting hurt. And that's not the way it works at SNL. It's a much more brutal.
Let me offer a little sidebar there, Brad. And again, it's me admiring you. Brad is a man of tremendous integrity. The truth and things matter a great deal to him. After the first year, I was fired. I'd have a good show, a bad show, but I was fired. And Brad,
how'd they do it? Did they bring you into a room and say you're fired?
They don't pick up the phone to say you're hired. but it was very clear that I wasn't coming back. And of course I was heartbroken even at the time. I don't know if you know this, Brad. I had already been asked to deliver the commencement address at my high school.
Oh.
But I found out the day before, or even that day, that I'd been fired. So I'm up in front, follow your dreams.
Oh my God.
Oh, it was so painful. But Brad goes into Dick Ebersol, and I don't know what you said, but he said, hey, listen, you didn't use Kroger correctly. He's a funny guy. You just, you know, I don't know what you said, but you were, you know, we were family and you went in to fight for me. And so Dick calls me up and says, okay, you know, meet me at Yankee Stadium. And he offered me a contract for the next year. But that was because of you. I'm pretty sure you know that.
No, I know. But I felt like it was totally unfair. I mean, they had not. Well, first of all, Paul was supposed to be on the show. They hadn't put him on the show at all. You know, you and I were supposed to be doing all kinds of stuff that we didn't get to do. Like, here's another, I don't know how much SNL stuff you want to talk about, but here's another typical moment. So I was doing the news, right? The Weekend Update thing, which was fine. I was very happy to do it. It was great. And the guy that wrote all the jokes, all of them, had invented Weekend Update, who's
Herb Sargent.
Herb Sargent. Delightful guy. He was at the time 2,000 years old, but that's okay. I really admired him as a guy, super smart, very elegant guy, been married 5 times. He'd gone out with every beautiful woman in Hollywood history. I mean, he was really kind of an old-fashioned New York
writing legend.
Sort of super book smart kind of guy. Great. And I got along with him spectacularly well. However, he was nuts when it came to Weekend Update. He was like a real tyrant. It was his thing. He wouldn't let anybody talk to him. If jokes didn't work, he'd change them. Oftentimes, on air, I'd be reading jokes that I'd never seen live. And because this is the old days, it's just a green screen. I couldn't see the picture joke. So I didn't know what the joke was. So that's kind of a weird thing to do to a 22-year-old. It's like, oh, where's the joke here? But be that as it may, I thought he was a great guy and whatever, tried to work with him. And I thought I had an idea one day, kind of in the middle of that first season. I thought, well, wait a second. Next year's the election. And why don't we start covering news from the SNL perspective? And I'll be the news guy, but I'll go out. And if there's a fire in New York, I'll go to fire's a bad example. But if there's something that could be funny, I'll go and I'll cover it from the SNL perspective. And we can do man on the street stuff. And so I had all these ideas. I go in and talk to Ebersol and Tischler, and I think Andy Smith at the time was the head writer. So I've got this idea, you know, we've got the news guy, and why don't we use him as a character and go out? And then when I do the actual segment on their show, we just run the film, and then I can do a little editorial. Back then, John Chancellor used to do editorials. So I had all these little ideas of how to sort of modernize the news, frankly, to do what Jon Stewart kind of did many years later and have correspondents that are out in the world. And that just felt weird to me to have people coming in, which they still to this day do. So they were like, that's great. What a great idea. It's fantastic. And then Tischler goes, well, I can't say that to her. I can't. So they couldn't confront her.
Even the producers couldn't approach her.
They couldn't talk to him. They're the boss. And I'm like, guys, come on. And they let us do one. And remember this, Gary? It was actually a good sketch. I went out as the news guy, and I said something like, you know, in New York City, a man is mugged every 13 seconds. This is that man. And it was, I interviewed him, and every 13 seconds he'd get mugged.
Yeah.
And which is, you know, fine. And we had dozens of those, man. That would have been so fun. And the whole idea, I thought, was why doesn't Saturday Night Live, the news, have a point of view? And for me, that was the problem with the show. There was never a point of view. It never had a feeling. I mean, if you look at shows that, and Saturday Night Live's had great seasons, bad seasons. We had good sketches, bad sketches. The prime time of SNL, you know, when Tina was the head writer, they had a really strong cast. Even then, it was really inconsistent, and it never had a real point of view, as opposed to, you know, Key and Peele or other shows that have come later, just never really evolved. And I think that typically, it's not the first time this has happened to me, we were a couple of years ahead of that. And we wanted to do music, and we wanted to do and we didn't understand why we were doing these sort of sitcom.
Well, I think I've always asked the question, and a lot of people wondered why, out of everybody, a guy from, I guess, NBC Sports, Dick Ebersol, who had no history in comedy, was given the job of showrunner. And
he was around. He'd been there when it started. He'd been some kind of assistant to an assistant.
Even so, there was nothing. There was no credibility to him getting hired to do that job.
I don't know. Gene Domanian was the year before, right?
Yeah, but okay. So she produced for Woody Allen. I don't know if that makes her funny.
Well,
no, it doesn't. They didn't have a good track record of picking people.
No. We called Dick Ebersol the George Steinbrenner of comedy. He just hired who he was smart enough to keep Eddie Murphy, and Piscopo was a real workhorse. He hired. Regardless, we were not in our element. We didn't do imitations, catchphrases.
Yeah, and we didn't want to.
We didn't want to.
Really funny. I mean, we weren't even smart enough to figure out the Bees, which was a giant hit. I mean, those characters, there was never once that they were in a good sketch. The point of the Bees. And so we didn't really figure that. I mean, like Gary and I had a sketch that we had done for 2 years before we got to Saturday Night called Handsome Men.
Handsome Men with Big Noses.
We knew that sketch.
It's anti-Semitic.
Yeah, yes. And so we had done that a million times. So we wrote a version of it, and it got on the show. We did it in dress, and then the show was long, as was often the case. And they said, okay, well, what can we trim? And Gary and I, of course, because we were trying to be team players all the time, said, we can trim Handsome Men with Big Noses. How long do you want it? You want it to be a minute? We'll do it a minute. You want it 3? It'll be 3. You want it 6? We'll do it 6. We've been doing it forever. So they said, oh, no, we'll shorten it, but we'll do it. And we said, well, no, believe me, we can cut it. It's our sketch. We know how to cut it. No, we'll cut it. So we come out to do it live, and they cut it in half probably. But what they did was, and they put it on cue cards, right? So now Gary and I are reduced to doing a sketch that we have done. We know this sketch like the back of your, better than the back of your hand. We're now reading a sketch that we wrote, we've performed hundreds of times, and what they've done is they cut all of the setups. Yeah. They left in all the punchlines, none of which made any sense.
So it's this weird sketch about two guys making fun of each other's nose. It just didn't have any reason.
When you guys were let go, when Saturday Night Live was over, how did you guys feel? Was this like, oh shit, I'm in trouble, let's call the agent or the manager? Or do you go,
that's not the way we were operating. I was pissed because we felt it was unfair and that we hadn't gotten our shot. But I didn't feel like, oh my God, I didn't even think about it. I mean, I started doing plays again.
Yeah, you were back at Practical Theater. I mean,
and I went back to Practical Theater.
Now, I was there with Julia one more year.
Oh,
yeah, I was there with Julia one more year. Now, here's a piece of Saturday Night Live history that Saturday Night Live fans who may watch our show probably don't know. After 1985, Billy Crystal and I was on the show, and Julia, et cetera, Marty Short, the show was over because those guys didn't want to continue, and Dick wasn't going to continue without them. There was talk about it becoming Saturday Night Live, Saturday night's main event, wrestling. Joe Piscopo wanted to do the Joe Piscopo show, but the show was over.
Really?
And somewhere in that summer, they coaxed Lorne Michaels into coming back.
Well, Broadway Video, they had some kind of deal with Broadway Video because Broadway Video was doing Friday night videos.
Friday night video.
And they were going to do a second night of videos, I think.
Right.
But there was also a new show that they were talking about.
Called The New Show. Right?
Well, that they did. The new show, that was Herb. That was Herb Sargent. And they did do that. Pardon me. He did what was it called? His was different. Then they did the new show. That was Friday night, but that was ABC. That wasn't
So let me get this straight. Gary gets fired. Brad walks into the office, gets Gary's job back. Then Brad gets fired. Gary says nothing.
Not true. Not true. Not true. In fact, I remember not true at all. In fact, I've always carried this burden. Julia went in to talk to Dick Ebersol. Saying, hey, my husband, I don't know if I don't know the story as well as you do probably, Brad, but she went in to say, I don't know that I want to continue without my husband. but whatever was worked out, she came in. I went in, and Dick Ebersol said, "Shut up! I don't want to hear what you're saying. Brad's not coming back."
Well, well, it's a long story, but I was going to come back, but I demanded to get $1 million as a writer, and they weren't going to do that. So
they weren't going to do it
because we weren't getting paid as writers, and so I made a list of the 15 sketches that I had on that year, and I said, "Well, here's 15 sketches that you got for free. So how many going to get this year?" He goes, "None, because you're not coming back." I'm like, "Whoa, hang on a second. You were paying me $1 million."
Yeah, it was a non-negotiable, and I was afraid of not being on the air, let alone walking out on
one thing that we don't need to go into the exact story, but one thing I have in common with Larry David is that he and I both had differences with But look, I got nothing bad to say about Dick Ebersol now. I know how hard his job is.
I want to go through the fact because you do Brooklyn Bridge, and of course then Single Guy was soon after that, where you were showrunner. The show you created, Single Guy. Watching Ellie came a little bit after that, and you directed a lot of Watching Ellie, didn't you?
Did I?
So you can't even remember.
No, well,
I can list everything on my resume, Brad.
I don't look backward, Gary, as you know, but I really don't. I don't remember stuff particularly well. But here's the thing about showrunning. When you're showrunning, you don't need to direct. If you're directing in television, I think that you put yourself in the head of the showrunner. And because you're fulfilling you're fulfilling what's already been created. So you come in to shoot whatever. The look is already created. It's just as you say. The look has already been created. The actors know the roles, or they've created the roles. And your job then is to direct traffic, to have a happy set, to maybe bring performances out of people that they've never done before. But primarily, it's to fulfill the wishes of the showrunner, which is a really hard job. And directors are incredibly important. You can get in the way, and I think you can make more mistakes. You're more likely to make mistakes than you are to elevate. And so I think that's when cast members and stuff direct, if they're not really directors, they can really screw stuff up. I mean, it can really be bad, even though you're getting all the coverage. And generally speaking, on a TV show, it's the way the show is shot is so established. Unless you're shooting a pilot, then you have to establish it. Mm-hmm. But once it's been established, like on Veep, for example, which I directed a lot, there were 4 cameras most of the time, but that is in practical sets most of the time toward the end, or on really fancy, beautiful sets for the White House or whatever. So there's a high end of technical proficiency. Every designer is spectacular. Every actor is unbelievably good at what they do. Yeah. Every costume is perfect. If you walk in there and screw that up,
how much is improvisation in Veep?
Huge. Well, depends on the scene, but a lot. I mean, it's a lot. And some actors were better at that and more comfortable with that than others. But at the beginning, before the Dave Mandel era, back in the Armando era, it was all improvised, pretty much. That is so much so that they were improvising stories, and that's really hard.
And what do you do as far as one more question, Gary, about directing? But what do you do as far as when you have improvisation, and you've got coverage, you've got 4 cameras, and for whatever reason, one of the cameras is just not there at that moment when that character's there? Do you say, well, let's go again? On improvisation, are they trying to hit the same notes, and how many times will you do it? Or
that's a really, really good question, and that's when the director has to make a call or establish a way that you're doing it. I mean, typically, what you want to do, and this doesn't always happen this way, but with Veep, which I think is a perfect way to use improvisation. If you have the time, and if you have the pages, you rehearse and improvise while you're rehearsing. That's the best time for improvisation. You find new things. A lot of that stuff will find its way into the script. That's fantastic. Well, guess what happens if you're 2-3 shows into a season? There aren't any pages. You're not going to rehearse at all. You may rehearse on the set if you're lucky. So a lot of times with Veep, and I'm not talking out of school, I wouldn't know what the story was the whole week I'm prepping. So it's like, I don't even know where the sets are going to be. There is no prep. You know,
Scared. I would be scared to death.
I'm scared now.
You can squeeze it
I have
in.
anxiety over this.
I have dreams like that as a director walking on a set and not having anybody tell me where the script is. I just want the script. Can somebody just give me the script?
There's a Veep that I directed. There's a scene when Julia's TV daughter comes out and says that she's in love with Clea Duvall.
And you directed that episode.
Yeah, but that scene
Secret Service, right?
We knew what Secret Service agent. So we knew what the scene was, and that had been in the outline. Hilarious idea, obviously. And Dave Mandel has really, really worked out the show well. But what was going to happen was really well worked out. It's just the actual pages that would get behind. So sometimes you get an outline, like on that show. We had a pretty strong outline, so I knew what that scene was going to be, but there weren't any pages. We couldn't rehearse. And we were on the set, and there weren't any pages. So we try to stay calm. I'm like, there's nothing. Finally, pages come. We realize it's not stageable. People come in through the wrong way. It was written too fast. Had good jokes, great stuff in it, but from a pure physical standpoint, you couldn't do it. You couldn't shoot it because it wasn't physically possible. Wrong people would talk when they hadn't made an entrance yet. Right? So we had to straighten that out. And then, the time's going and you're dying and there's 150 people in the crew. It's like, holy shit, we got to get this right. And then you realize you fall back on what you've been doing for 1,000 years, which is just talking to actors and making stuff up and having a good time. And so once with that show, the joy is it's already a successful show. Everybody knows how funny the people in it are. Everybody's easy to work with. So you can relax, or you have to make yourself relax. Right. And then funny stuff happens, and sometimes funny stuff happens under pressure, but I find that it's much more likely to happen if you're happy. So that scene worked out to be and in fact, when I'd staged it, realized it wasn't going to work, the problem with what you're talking about with improvising on camera in Veep is the whole style of Veep, and I was really vigilant about this, is you never swing to the person for the joke. You have to swing after the joke starts, because what motivates the camera move? The way that show works.
It's reacting. The camera's reacting to the material.
You're a fly on the wall watching the show. So
what a great note.
So you can't get there too early or it won't work. So
wow.
So if you're improvising, guess what? These cameramen were so good. One guy in particular, all of them were good, but there was one guy who was just unbelievable. So you make sure, okay, he's going to be the guy that's going to be on this person that's going to get that shot. And then sure enough, in an improv, he'd hear it. And wham, he'd get there right after the joke would start. And you would be cutting and just go nuts. In fact, the Roger Nygaard, who's one of the best editors in Hollywood, and he edited several years of Veep, and he's writing a book about editing. And we were just talking about stuff, and he just sent me some galleys because he talked to Julie and I and got some quotes. And he was making fun of me because I love editing. I mean, I love editing. So there was I think that maybe the first show I ever directed at Veep, I spent 5 times what most directors would spend in the room, because I love editors, I love editing, I loved Veep, and so I would just obsess and go over and over and over and over.
They must have hated you.
And then, of course, then Dave Mandel comes in and he could just say, no.
Right.
But he's super generous, so we would cut together for the rest of the time. When it was his time to cut, I just sit with him. So, but for improvising, Veep was set up for it. It was designed for it.
No, I think that observation that when you're doing improvisation and thinking about even like Curb Your Enthusiasm, when you set up, the cameras are basically just another person in the room and they're reacting to the material as it's happening. That's how you kind of cover it. And that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well,
if you cheat it doesn't work. It's different.
Yeah.
But I honestly learned something there, because I watched Veep, and of course we've both done Curb, and I watched Curb. But Veep in particular, I'm always marveling at how the timing is always right. And as you say, it wouldn't have occurred to me as an observer that the camera gets there after the setup has started. And
Right,
now thinking
right.
back on it, I mean, that's anybody that's trying to learn to edit, there's your note. You basically answered everything I wanted to ask, because I know David Mandel is just a joy. He's a Northwestern grad.
Wow.
No,
So many
Dave,
people
Isn't
can't.
he? I thought David was a Northwestern grad.
He's Harvard. He's Harvard.
Oh, is he Harvard? Well, but he's a great, we're Facebook friends, but
Yeah. No, Dave Mandel is an extraordinary guy. And I got to say that to come into that show after it had been really successful for 4 years, and when it was, Julia really wanted to move to Los Angeles because she was missing her kids. And, I could go back and forth a lot, but it was harder for the kids in school. And Garcetti, God bless him, our mayor, made a big effort to get back to Los Angeles, give him a big tax rebate to get him back. A stage opened up with Paramount. Morgan Sackett, who's a producer that Julie and I have worked with almost exclusively throughout our TV careers. He's the best, I think, the best producer working in Hollywood, and he wanted to do it. And all we needed to do was find a showrunner. And we hadn't, Julie was like, oh, this person, she was meeting people, and I'm racking my brain. And for some reason, we just hadn't thought of Dave because he hadn't been running Curb. He was at Curb, and he'd been a great writer at SNL. And at SNL too, but at Seinfeld. And he was a friend and a delightful guy, obviously. But for some reason, somebody, Casey Bloys actually at HBO said, what about Dave Mandel? And Julie about fell off her chair and said, of course it's Dave Mandel. What in the world? And called him up basically to say, would you please do this? So she wasn't even really interviewing him, I'm sure, at the time. And he took on an impossible job and yet made the show his own, but kept everything.
yeah.
Kept everything.
Speaking of Julia, you guys work together so much, and here you're directing her on Veep. We know she's one of the great improvisers, and talking about the context that you were talking about. Is it really easy for you because it's your wife, or is there a different, you know what I'm saying? Is there a different persona?
Yeah, no, I really, it's funny. I work with her all the time, she's just really easy. And the thing about Julia is she's a worker. She's a worker bee. Nobody works harder than Julia. She just really likes to work. And so she is constantly working. And part of that is being really forgiving of other actors and really supportive of other actors. And it's impressive, to see she really likes the work. And I think that's why she doesn't have a lot of sort of the trappings of being a TV star. You would never know she's a TV star when you're on the set with her because that's not how she operates. She just likes to work. So she comes to every scene when she's not in it. She's always on the set because she knows that she's going to learn something from somebody. And particularly on Veep, I think on Seinfeld, for all those years on Seinfeld, she was battling with Larry and Jerry to get more material because their natural inclination was not to write female stories. And so she would have to really get in there, and they're delightful, closest friends ever people, and she loved every second of the show, but she wanted to do more all the time. And I think that when they finally opened up to the idea of that, I don't know what season, you could probably, if you knew Seinfeld well, you could probably point to the moment. That's when that show became 4 stories,
Right.
And it's very Breckman-esque.
Season 3.
You guys had Breckman on the show, but Larry had something very closely in common with Breckman. Breckman is so good, the best I've ever read, at making a sketch be about 3 things, and then at the end, they collide. Remember how Larry's Corner was the perfect.
Larry's Corner, right? The luckiest man in the world.
Luckiest man in the world.
Safe falls under.
Perfect. Those are perfect sketches, and that Larry's Corner laugh is the biggest laugh I've ever heard in the studio.
The milk. We talked about it. We talked about the milk through the nose.
And it was Andy doing the milk.
Right.
But Larry has the same thing. He's got this skill of 4 stories, separate stories, told really quickly in a million different scenes. And then at the end, boom, they come together.
Yeah, it's great.
And he figured that out, not at the beginning. If you watch the first couple seasons, they didn't really work like that.
And certainly not the pilot, which wasn't even a pilot, really. No relation at all.
It takes years. But once he got that, and I think that's, so in that time, over those years of trying to get more material and stuff, she's the greatest prop actor that ever lived. There's never been a better eater on screen than Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She can come into a scene and eat a candy bar or a bowl of cereal or whatever and really eat. You know, a lot of people can do that. And you know what I mean. It seems like that would be an easy thing to do. It's not.
No, it's
when
not
you're
at all.
on camera, you're thinking, I'm eating.
Right,
You know?
right.
And
I'm self-conscious now, just drinking from this mug in a podcast.
yeah, look, that's very believable, Gary. You know,
Well, this comes full circle. Because I told you that Brad is a very inspiring man, and he's always been an inspiration to me, someone that I truly look. And clearly, anybody listening and watching this knows what I'm talking about. But we have to bring this to an end. I know that we could wait till the sun comes up and share that experience together. But Ken, you have some sort of probably stupid game.
Well, we were talking about. We were talking about decisions that you have to make, those choices. Right. There's a TV show on, and it's a moral question, whole thing. What would you do? You know, where they throw out a wallet, then they videotape to see if somebody would pick it up or not. Well, we're going to play somewhat of a variation on that, but I will tell you that every incident that I'm going to tell you about is absolutely true. It happened. And I'm going to ask you both, one, what would you do? And two, what do you think Ketty did?
Yes.
So I'm about to go through a doorway. On the other side, simultaneously, a person in a wheelchair and another person with a mother with a stroller is on the other side. If I step aside to the right, I allow the person in the wheelchair to go first. If I step to the left, it's the woman, the mom with the stroller. Who has the right of way?
Brad?
I would let the wheelchair person go through.
I would too.
Oh, why? You can't just, well, do you have any kind of reason why you made that decision?
Well, Brad was about to say.
Yeah. I would do that because I never liked that mother. And I'm afraid of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, because he's on the right on the other side of the door, therefore has the right.
So literally left, right of way is your thinking.
I know, he just said left, right at the end.
I just think that the greater obstacle to going through a door is going to be a wheelchair. The woman is inconvenienced, but the other issue seems to me to be of more gravity.
What do you think I did?
You let the woman through.
I think
you threw the guy out of the chair, you took it, and you went down the
Did I mention that the woman was hot?
Oh, you forgot that.
Now, that was important, and you didn't mention it. So that's what you did?
That's what I did.
All right, good. All right, next.
But was it a guy in a wheelchair, or could have been a
big fat guy. Big fat guy.
Big fat guy? Okay.
Nothing. I mean, that's fine. I'm just saying. No,
of course it's fine.
You just asked the question. I'm just telling you honest.
Okay, it's fair enough. Give us another.
Okay. You're hungover. The night before, you got wasted with your friends and probably your son and whatever. You come down, you can hardly move. You just can make it to the couch, but the couch is covered with popcorn, pretzels, potato chips, tortilla chips, and a half a cookie. What do you do?
Do I go first this time?
Yeah.
It's been a long time, but I've been in it, and I know that I woke up with popcorn and pretzels on my body, so I just plopped down.
Okay.
Brad?
Yeah, there's no question that's exactly, well, that's what you would do. Mm-hmm. I mean, whether or not that's the...
Right.
You would do that.
Ken, that's what you did.
I'm talking about Gary.
No, that's not what I did.
You cleaned the couch?
I ate the popcorn, the cookie. The tortilla chip.
Now, see, I found that to be so far-fetched that I didn't even offer it as a possibility.
If the popcorn the next day, just because it's on the couch, and, I actually needed the nourishment because I was so hungover. So that was breakfast.
Fair enough. Let's do one more, Ken. You can't. I know you've got millions.
No, I don't. I just have 4 more.
Okay.
They're going to be quick. I think you'll enjoy them.
I do enjoy it. I just, I've told you how busy Brad is. I know there are people outside of his office.
Brad can leave if he doesn't want to play the game. Brad, do you want to play the game?
I want to play the game.
Brad wants to stay and play the game. Okay. I go to pick up a pizza. I'm in the pizza place. I'm waiting for my pizza. In the meantime, I see a guy who is just putting, closing the box on a pizza, and he sneezes right into the pizza. And I'm like, holy shit. And he closes the box and he turns around to hand it to the person who's waiting, who hadn't seen this. So you follow me here so far?
Yeah.
I've seen him sneeze in the pizza box. I don't think anybody else has seen it but me. I don't know what to do. Do I tell the what do you
Brad?
do?
You purchase the pizza.
You buy the pizza from the person?
Yeah. You purchase the pizza.
And then what do you do with the pizza?
Then you eat the pizza. You get a terrible disease. And then you are motivated by the disease to go into medicine. You become one of the foremost epidemiologists in the United States of America.
And that's exactly what I did.
Ken, I know for a fact that you didn't say a thing. I would have said something in this situation. My son makes pizza. I don't know if that gives me any credibility, but I would not be able to get my mind out of the fact that I just couldn't divorce myself of the fact that he's eating snot and pepperoni.
Do you think that in COVID, this is a fair...
Certainly during a COVID period.
This was pre-COVID.
I have to tell you, that pizza might have been sneezed on.
Here's what I did. I spoke up and I said, he just sneezed in that pizza. And the owner turned around and said, no, he did not. And then the wife turned around and she said, get out of here. And then everybody started yelling at me and I'm going, no, he did. Nobody ever did this. He did not see. Did anybody else see? And the person's like waiting to take the pizza and they're screaming at me. And the guy says, get out and never come back here again. Get out, never come back here. And that's why, I had to go next door to Ralph's, and I explained to my wife why I brought home a roasted chicken as opposed to the pizza. So that's
I did not see that coming.
That's true.
Very good. I admire you.
The guy that sneezed, did the guy that sneezed deny it?
Oh,
he would have lost his job.
He did. He just turned around and just was like shaking his head, like, "Don't look at me." But that happened.
Well, that's quite a story.
Yeah.
Next.
Okay. Well, they're not over yet.
No.
You know that you go in to get a salad at a place. You just like there's a little place here. You walk in, you go to the counter. It's got a board up, and it's like they get the different salads. So I ordered a number 3, which is a tuna egg salad combination. So there's a kid on the other side. I say I'll have a number 3. The kid taps the iPad. Right? One time, just taps the iPad. Says, was that all? I said, yes. One tap. That's all he did. Then he turns the iPad around, and now the iPad is facing me, and for me to sign, and it says tip, 18%, 20%, 25%. And I'm like, wait, am I supposed to tip you because you just tapped it? All you did was you went like that, tap, and you won an 18%. And he said, sir, it's completely up to you. Do what you want to do. What would you do?
Let me go first here.
Go ahead.
In my life, in my past, I was a tightwad and famous for it. But I learned through the process of being me and then owning a restaurant a couple of times in my life that the tipping they're paid so little. Now, even though it's not really your responsibility to pay them, I now tip 20 to 25% on anything.
Yeah, but that's after you've been served. You're talking about...
Well, no, in any
service.
situation. Okay. In any situation, their tips are being considered as part of what this person declares as their income. And they need that income. And I figure they need it more than I need. I would have tipped at least 20%.
20%.
Given this, 20%.
One tap, 20%. Okay, Brad?
Yeah.
100% agree with Mr. Kroger. There should be the tip minimum wage is a big problem.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
that's
correct. This was my thinking. My concern is what we've established now is giving the tip before the service. Am I right? It used to be you evaluate the service, You get the food, and then
to
you go,
ensure prompt service.
yeah, and then you go, hey, you know
Allegedly,
what?
it's
You
an
did a good
acronym.
job, whatever. Okay, but now we're into this world of pre-tipping, which I don't
Well,
know.
I think that's the thing, though. The tip is no longer. It doesn't. It's no longer related to the work.
Right.
Because
Right.
The salary is
It's
so
the
low.
It's the wage.
Okay.
Just
It
to
is the
get
wage.
this guy to minimum wage, you got to tip 25%.
Yeah. You have to.
Well, you guys got a lot more progressive policy. I just basically thought to myself, is this going to affect the scoop of tuna that they're going to put on my salad? If this
Yeah, but
reduces,
then if you get
if it reduces, so I'm anticipating a lower amount of tuna because
Well,
I
you
did
know what?
pre-tip.
You know what? It's entirely possible. You know, I worked in the restaurant business, and I never allowed a server to take it. You know, you got what you got, but you'd see them come into the kitchen. They're not going to tip me at all. You'd see, so things can happen.
Right,
You
well,
know.
I gave 18%.
All right. Well.
things can happen. I don't like hearing that. Things can
Well,
happen.
no. When I worked at the Keg in Chicago, when I was a student,
Perhaps this is why you're no longer in the restaurant business, Gary.
well, I remember one of the servers hated their customers so much they licked their steak and took it out. And in this case, I watched them consume the steak. But that's what a disgruntled server. So I am the.
But
nicest
that's why you
customer in the
shouldn't
world.
tip before, because then you've already put down, and then they know how much you're going to tip.
Tip 25%. You're going to get an extra scoop.
Oh, you got
But at the counter there wasn't really an opportunity to tip him after. So
There should have been. You could have.
Right. There could have. That's right. But if there's a line,
When they call your name and you go up there, then it's like, okay, I'll
Ken,
give it a tip.
write your congressman.
I am.
Write your congressman.
Okay. I'll do one last one, guys.
All right.
And this one is actually took place in Santa Barbara.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you are now, Brad?
I am.
There's
a mountain.
Oh my goodness gracious! Oh my God, they are.
I was on Main Street, and I was looking. Maybe I was just reading the menu on the restaurant, and I heard a noise. Oh, and there was a guy in a wheel. Oh, this is another wheelchair story. If you guys are okay with that. And there was a guy with a wheelchair, and he was trying to get in the door to open the door of the restaurant.
Was he a big heavy guy? Because we know how this is going to end.
No, but his thing was I don't know, he couldn't really communicate. And he was like, calling me over. So I went over.
This could end badly, Brad.
I went over. I was like, okay, I guess he wants to get in the restaurant. So I opened the door and I push him into the restaurant. I'm not really sure what's going to happen, but I push him in the restaurant. And people look and they see me. He's standing there with the guy with the wheelchair. And he starts going, and pointing. And I'm not really sure where he's pointing, but I start to steer him towards this door, which I guess was the restroom, when suddenly the guy comes around from the restaurant, steps in front of us and says, "I'm sorry, sir. The restrooms are only for customers only. Are you a customer?"
Now, this is to the man in the wheelchair he's speaking.
No,
Or you.
To me, I am pushing
Okay.
the man in the wheelchair.
Okay.
The guy who works there, the waiter or whatever, walks over to me and says, "You cannot go any further." He assumes I am with the man
Right.
in the wheelchair.
Okay. So what's the question?
What do you do now? The guy says you can't do this. What do you do? What do you do? Do you just like?
You try to explain. I mean, did you try to explain? And say, "Oh, I'm just helping this gentleman here who had some trouble getting. He was outside. I'm assuming he's a regular, perhaps a fine customer that's here."
Is that what you would have done, Brad?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, try to reason with the owner and the waiter.
You,
Yeah.
Gary?
Does that make sense? Is that a bad
Well,
idea?
for sure, that would be the first thing that I would attempt to do, is that I was just helping out here,
Mm-hmm.
and then see where that goes. Now, if the answer to that is I don't care, I might pee right there.
Well, it's not you who has to pee.
Oh, he
You're
has
pushing-
to pee.
He has.
I
to
got
pee.
confused.
I'm pushing a guy who I don't know, who's in a
And
wheelchair.
he has to go to the bathroom.
Which, yes,
All right.
after I push him
Of
in, he
course
wants me to take him to the bathroom.
You know what? honest to God, I would reason, as Brad said, I would say, I'm sorry, we're going to the bathroom. And if you don't think that that's a good idea, there are going to be complications here that you're not going to like. I would be quasi-threatening.
I like that. I like seeing you in that mode.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you think?
I would pull my thing as I write a column for the paper, and this is not going to bode well for your business. And I really would. Hey, I think I won that one.
Well, it's not about it, but you know what Kenny did?
What did Kenny do?
I turned and ran and never went back again, leaving the guy in the wheelchair with the people in the restaurant.
So what we're getting here are real life lessons.
Yeah. Well, listen, because what went through my head was, I am not going to push this guy in the wheelchair through into the bathroom. When is it going to end? I have to push him into the bathroom? Do I have to pick him up, unzip him so he can pee? There was no good way out. I am not taking responsibility.
I'm wondering if there's a story that where the answer is where you would say, I turned and ran. Where did the moral thing?
Well, you know what? And now we have perfect bookends because you two hadn't met before. Brad, or Ken, I'm sure you can see why I admire Brad so much, and Brad, I'm sure you can see why I get such a kick out of Kenny.
I think I'm going to make a little visit to Amazon and see if I turned and ran.
Brad, there's a premise. There's a premise. Every day he faces a guy in a wheelchair. What do I do?
I'm going to get the audiobook. I turned and ran.
Well, that's in basically this is a perfect example of what we hope the show would be: a little bit of wisdom, some stories, some fun inside information. We love when it's about show business. I personally love when it's personal aspects, as you shared, Brad, your wife, your family, and students, and your children, and all that stuff. But like I've said, Brad has to go. You've got a lot of time on your hands. I have a life outside this door. We're going to go back to that reality. You get taking a picture?
Yeah, take a picture. Everybody ready? There's a picture of you nice.
So I want to thank Brad Hall, our guest.
Thank you, Brad. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Mr. Grover.
And let me say thank you to our viewers. You catch us on, what are we on? iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, YouTube channel.
Well, I'm on Flomax.
You're on Flomax. Few new shows, Buzzsprout, etc., etc. The Gary and Kenny Show. Thanks for joining us. And gentlemen, it's been a slice.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Ken. Run away, Ken.
I turned and I ran.